In this video, I will share with you 5 most dangerous habits in piano playing and their healthier alternatives. If you want to get a more detailed advice about efficiency of piano playing, about safe and healthy piano playing, please check out my course dedicated to the basics of piano technique, or contact me for a lesson following the link in the description to this video. And also right now I'm working on a comprehensive course dedicated to a complete set of famous Brahms piano exercises, where I will explain in detail how to approach each of them. So please subscribe to this channel and hit the bell in order not to miss this course, because the aim of this course is to help you to transform your piano technique. So a bad habit number 1 is, of course, lifting the fingers, because many piano teachers still do teach their students to lift their fingers as high as possible. So we still might see something like that quite often, unfortunately. And of course, I understand the reason. The reason is that many students, many beginner pianists, when they start playing piano, they still have no strength in the fingers and no ear control of what they're doing. So quite often they play piano with so-called overcooked spaghetti fingers, overlapping the sounds and providing a weak and uncontrolled sound. So when we ask a student to lift their fingers, we immediately achieve a great goal over a short term. They immediately start sounding more precise and stronger. But in the long term, this turns to be a very dangerous habit, because it causes a so-called co-contraction when we use extensors and flexors at the same time. When we play piano, lifting the fingers, we are basically fighting ourselves, because we are activating 2 opposing muscle groups. And this causes a huge amount of tension and leads to overuse issues. And unfortunately, I have to say that many piano teachers don't take an effort to learn about efficiency of piano playing from the positions of modern findings, modern physiology findings. I even know an internationally established music teacher who works in one of the leading East Coast music colleges in the United States, who plays that way, lifting the fingers a lot. And because of that, she has, time to time, she has strong pains in the hands. So she has to visit a massage therapist time to time in order to get rid of pain. But nevertheless, nothing rings a bell for her, and she doesn't ask herself, like, is it normal that I frequently experience pains? Does everyone experience pains? Is it possible to play piano without pain? Instead, she teaches her student to play that way. So here we have to understand that something that works short term, making you immediately sound better, not obviously is healthy in the long term. And since many of us think of piano playing as of a lifelong relation, lifelong process of developing your talents and expressing yourself through music, then of course we have to think about developing a natural, safe, tension-free piano playing that would allow us to avoid any health problems. So instead of lifting the fingers, we might go another way that is, of course, a bit harder to master at first, but it's much more beneficial over a long term. So whenever you hit the key, you have a choice how to stop that sound, how to stop that note. Of course, we can lift the finger like that, which means we work twice, when we hit the key and when we lift the finger. Or we can just release the muscle that drives our finger. And if we do that properly and quickly, the key will return into its initial position without any additional amount of work needed. Of course, in order to master that skill of being able to release finger instead of lifting them, you need a lot of concentration at first, and you need to practice at first slowly, because you have to give 2 commands at the same time. You have to give a command to the next finger to hit the key and a command to the previous finger to release. And if you've never done this before, of course it might be tricky at first. That's why you have to start from a slower tempo and give your time to get used to this, to form this new habit. But in the long run, this is a very beneficial habit, especially because even if you don't run into health problems, that I hope you don't, but even if you have incredibly strong genetics and you're not going to end up with overuse issues, nevertheless, when you will get to pieces that require ultimate speed, pieces like Flight of the Bumblebee or Prelude by Chopin No. 16 from Opus 28, pieces that should be as fast as possible, basically. You're going to seriously limit yourself if you will lift the fingers, because each time you lift a finger, that's additional time. So in order to play such pieces, such extremely fast pieces, efficiently and really quickly up to world standards, we have to stay close to the keys, and we have to synchronize our motions in such a way that we would not lift fingers, and control that we don't use motions that slow us down. The second bad habit is, of course, an unnecessary pressure on the keys. So we seek for a sensation of leaning against the key, but we avoid unnecessary pressure on the key. Yeah, so that's a very thin border on the one side, to lean against the bottom of the key, but on the other side, avoid unnecessary pressure on the key, especially when you play something loud, for example, massive chords. There's absolutely no sense of staying tense after the hit. That's why it's always good to develop a habit of being able to immediately release the fingers, the hands, having some cushioning after the hit, and leaving only that amount of tension in fingers that is necessary in order to prevent keys of going up, but not more. Also, this is very important because if you want to become a good musician, you have to learn how to listen not to the hit of the sound, but how the sound blossoms after the hit. And this is much easier to do if you have this setup of releasing yourself physiologically after each hit. So when you hit a loud chord, your task is not just to focus on the moment of the hit, but also on immediate release and continuing listening to the sound, being free after the hit. And you listen how that sound travels around the room. Which will help you to listen to the sound itself better and build beautiful phrases and find a very powerful but nevertheless noble sound, which is quite impossible to get if you are staying tense all the time. Another quite dangerous habit is, of course, tension in the wrist. You might see it when people play with a high wrist like that, but we have to understand that this happens as an unconscious reaction to some other issue. For example, when a student sits too low or too high. I would remind here that the best sitting posture is when your elbows are more or less on the level with the keys, when your forearm is parallel to the surface of the keys, but not too low or too high. And of course, one of the most common reasons why we get tension in the wrist is lack of stability in the metacarpal bridge and nail joints of fingers. Because each bodily part, each part of our arm executes best a certain function. And the function of the wrist, the primary function of the wrist, is providing us with that flexibility and elasticity in piano playing, but it's not really good in holding a constant tension. And when we are frequently tense in the wrist, it might easily lead to some health issues that are quite difficult to heal because this zone is very tender and very complex. So physiology of the wrist is very complex, and when something goes wrong, usually that's a problem. It takes a lot of time to heal. That's why we have to train our fingers, and I think that I was doing quite rapid progress in piano playing when I was a child. Also, mainly because I loved all kind of games with a ball. I was a very passionate goalkeeper. So by the time when I started playing piano, my fingers already were very strong. And with the help of my teacher, who helped me to find good movements, to set up a good hand posture, of course, it was quite easy to develop fluent technique. But if you feel that you can't hold stability in the metacarpal bridge and in the nail joint of your fingers, if you feel that your fingers are bending backwards, of course, I would suggest you to consider training your fingers not only by practicing piano, but, for example, obtaining some special gummy balls or special devices for training the fingers that you can get at a physical therapist office or maybe in some sport shop. There are also some simple exercises that you can do without instrument, like for example finger wrestling when you connect the wrists. create a rhomb structure with your hand palms, with your fingers, and then fight with each finger against another one. So fifths against fifths, fourth against fourth, and so on. And the task here is to keep wrists together and to activate nail joint of the finger, so not letting fingers bend backwards like that, but always maintaining a good shape, good rounded shape in your hand palm, and activating nail joints and metacarpal bridge. Or, for example, just hanging on any kind of surface, table or desk, hanging on a finger like that, turning your finger into a hook, into an anchor, and making sure that your wrist is relaxed and you are stable in the nail joint and in the knuckle, and then just hanging on each finger at a time. Of course, not overdoing these exercises, not exhausting your fingers, but doing these exercises just a few minutes a day might help you to strengthen them. Another bad habit is, of course, holding tension in fingers that don't work right now. For example, you might frequently see a situation when a person plays a scale, and while playing fingers 1, 2, 3, their fingers 4 and 5 are lifted up. This means that we have a huge amount of tension here, even in the fingers that don't work. So basically, when you press one key, you work with all the 5 fingers. And this is also quite dangerous because it makes you always tense. So in order to turn piano playing into a safe and enjoyable experience, we have to work only with those fingers that play right now. So when you play a scale, you just transfer the weight from finger to finger, controlling that all the other fingers are absolutely relaxed. And as soon as you hit next finger, you just properly release the previous one, as was told in the beginning of this video. This is especially important when you change positions, when you move from one position to another one. Like, for example, in this etude by Chopin. Basically, we have a few hand positions here. One, and this is the second hand position. So our task is not only transfer the weight from finger to finger, releasing the previous ones, but also completely releasing the hands while we move to the next position. Complete release, and then transferring the weight from finger to finger. And this is a very important habit because it helps you to have a very natural workflow when you don't have a constant tension, but apply just a little bit of tension when it is necessary. And the fifth problem that is also unfortunately quite common is working with isolated fingers and always using just fingers in order to play piano, not using some efficiency strategies like, for example, forearm rotation. And I'm speaking a lot about these strategies also in my course or in my other videos, and also in my detailed tutorials dedicated to particular pieces that you might find unteachable, because there are a lot of things that we can play without working with fingers much. Like, for example, while playing trills, what I was explaining in one of my recent videos, or in broken chords, in many situations actually. Or, for example, the direction of the hit. Either it is out of the keyboard, like a pulling motion, pulling sensation, or motion in the keyboard. Makes a huge difference and can help us optimizing some things in order to work less with fingers, in order to less overuse our hands. Like, for example, in this spot, if I would use just fingers, this is a huge amount of work actually, and it's quite an effort. But if I would just optimize my movements, coordinating my motions in such a way that some notes are played on the motion out of the keyboard, and some notes are played in the motion in the keyboard, and then out. So basically 2 notes out of the keyboard, 2 notes in. In this way, we are naturally strengthening some fingers. For example, the fourth finger. It's really great to strengthen the fourth finger with the motion in the keyboard, even when playing scales. Like here, for this F sharp, I just do a very short motion in the keyboard. The impulse comes from the elbow, and this is a very short, well-timed motion that helps me to activate the knuckle of the fourth finger. What is important is, of course, to avoid lifting up your wrist. Yeah, the wrist remains neutral. This motion just helps me to activate the knuckle of the fourth finger. And if you play like that, you can reach as much stability in the fourth finger that is naturally weak as in any other finger. So such tricks and such efficiency strategies help us to optimize our motions, to work less, but to gain better results. I hope that this video was helpful. Stay tuned and see you next time.